have taken a beating in this last week because of my reputation for seeking a free enterprise solution for all problems. Now I have friends who I thought were free enterprisers like myself calling me and saying, hey, where's your free enterprise solution for this mess, pal? Thank God the federal government is there. We would have homeless lined up around the block. Well, as a matter of fact, the homeless are lined up around the block getting the free food that is being distributed by generous local enterprises, supermarkets, and food drives organized by churches and other organizations. But the bigger issue is the $2 trillion stimulus. I don't think it would have been so quickly offered if this wasn't an election year, certainly not by the Republican Party, but it would come out anyway through the democratically controlled Congress. But the $2 trillion, which we might be able to absorb, although economists were already worried that we went over $20 trillion in debt anyway. But I think the biggest concern is how easily the media is accepting the fact that we'll wait for the next one. Coming out next week will be Nancy Pelosi's, as she states, it will be more fair. This will be the fair one. $2 trillion stimulus that's going to go to the people that really need it, and not these corporations. Of course, there's no mention of the $25 million of the first stimulus allocated to remodel the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. But forget that. The most important factor is the stimulus package seems like such a godsend, but it is already affecting the thinking of Americans. And when Nancy Pelosi announced the next week, now people are sending in their desires for things to be added to that stimulus package. And it's getting to be pretty hard to imagine that there won't be a demand for another $2 trillion in May. Today they announced that state of North Carolina, they'd already extended their unemployment insurance another 25 weeks or whatever, and now the federal government is ordering states to order all state unemployments to extend. And then on top of that, there's going to be these payments for making up the salary. And I think it was Senator Lindsey Graham came on and said, we've done the math. A citizen who's out of work today is going to lose $200 a week if he goes back to work once the crisis is over, hopefully by the end of the month. This is going to be a tough issue as it spreads across the nation during an election year. But how do you explain this simply? And then this morning, I was reminded about the Harvard medical statement that about ibuprofen, which originally had been stated to be non-effective against the coronavirus. That's all they said. Don't waste your time with ibuprofen. Now they came out with a new study that says, oh my God, ibuprofen will in fact make it worse. The virus feeds on ibuprofen. You'll die quicker if you take ibuprofen. And this is an incredible new piece of panic edit point, a new piece of data to consider. And all of a sudden, I think I found the leverage to get the message across. And I'm going to try it very quickly. So I immediately thought about the movie from 1970s, The Andromeda Strain. And I thought this might be the way to let people know how serious something that looks so benevolent today can be so damaging in the future. In a nutshell, in the Andromeda Strain, we accidentally bring back a germ from outer space. and the space probe lands in Piedmont, wherever the heck that, I don't know which Piedmont that is, I can't remember, but the space probe comes back, lands in a small little city called Piedmont. Probe gets opened, and all of the citizens die. So guys in their hazmat suits immediately take the germs in the ice. Edit point, getting tired here. So the edit point. So these guys in their hazmat suits are set in there. They take the probe that had been opened by a local doctor. They take it into an underground facility that was built to study germs, and they begin trying to figure out how to control this germ that kills people instantly. Meanwhile, they are asking the President of the United States to order a nuclear bomb to annihilate any remaining germs left in Piedmont. And of course, there's a lot of political fighting for that, and they won't do it. But meanwhile, they're testing for the germ in the lab, and then one day the chief of staff calls and says, "Okay, the president has approved. You'll be so happy. The president has approved the dropping of the nuclear weapon, so you guys should be very happy." And of course, they are happy. They say, "Okay, they're going to drop the bomb in an hour." And of course, they're going through, they're continuing the testing, and then something happens, and all of a sudden, the germ gets tested with some type of a nuclear isotope, and all of a sudden the computers go crazy, and it turns out the germ is multiplying beyond their control, and they can't believe it. And then there's that movie moment where they all look at each other and go, "Oh my God, he can't drop the nuclear bomb. We'll never be rid of this virus. It'll consume the world." Okay, there it is. I think you can rent the film on Amazon.com for $3.99. But that's where we are with the stimulus. The bigger issue is we're not going to learn the lessons. Right now, there's a lot of wealthy people in America that can help and will help in the communities. People are already doing food drives because the government money hasn't been received yet. So there's food drives. No one is starving to death in America right now because of the generosity of the local communities. This problem needs to be solved locally. Certainly the federal government has a role in making sure that all the research is disseminated to doctors and hospitals, and whatever funding to get emergency personnel to have all the tools they need, that funding is absolutely a good investment on the part of the federal government, but not the $2 trillion stimulus packages. This will become an expected contribution, if you will, to the needy. If they say that 60% of the Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, what's going to happen in 2 weeks when the next $2 trillion is going to be spent? It's very hard to imagine how they're not going to do it again in May. So we're already concerned about the unemployment. People are going to be losing money to go back to work. So hopefully people will grasp the lessons we're going to miss out on in this crisis that are so important for America. We're going to miss the important lesson about capitalism and free enterprise, that wealthy people are generous by nature. Certainly they don't give away their money to people that have a job, and that if they're leasing an office space from that building under a contract, they want that contract honored. But there's already in New York, major high-rise owners are telling the tenants, don't worry about your rent. especially the storefronts, if the government has closed them down. They don't want an empty building. They don't want to evict people. So citizens across the nation who have an anti-capitalistic mentality that wealthy people are greedy, that the only reason there's such a thing as poor people is because Bill Gates is taking too much money out of the economy, that is not true. So the lessons that people are going to miss out on is, why don't they have some savings? Why don't Americans save anymore? What about the old term, save for a rainy day? It's raining right now, ladies and gentlemen. So those kind of lessons, the generosity of your own community. There's a lot of wealthy people in the community that are going to keep people fed. Already there's food drives everywhere before the stimulus checks arrive. We can handle this community by community because of the generosity of Americans. And there's some important lessons that should be included in our elementary schools about the importance of saving. Nobody grows old by surprise, astrophysicist Andrew Columbus once said. And the same thing applies to the rainy days. Life goes on. We don't know when the next crisis is, but it will be preparation of the individual that's going to save America. So I'm concerned that these $2 trillion tranches, which are just printing up currency and which debases the currency for everyone in America, is going to be a political issue for November. And any party that doesn't say, hey, there's plenty of money, we just keep printing it up, is going to lose the election. Bernie Sanders on Friday night with Bill Maher said, as president, what I would do immediately is tell everybody, hunker down and home, but all of your bills are going to be paid by the federal government. You don't have to go to work. But we're going to make sure that all of your paychecks, everything you were depending on before the crisis, you're going to keep getting that money. And I mean, it was hard to hear an American make that kind of a statement. Those are the statements, by the way, that came out of the Bolshevik Revolution. In Russia, people said, hey, everything's going to be great in Russia. We're all equal. Yeah, well, equal destitution, as it turned out. Anyway, we are in a crisis. Let's not make it worse. Spread the word out. Stop this drive for federal money to bail everything out. Let's work it locally at the communities. Let's take advantage of the fact that all of our neighbors, we are all in this together. And as a result, those who have really saved for a rainy day and have wealth from their enterprises or inheritance, whatever it is, they're not going to allow people to starve in the street. All right. So stay in this and together, wash our hands, talk to our loved ones, and let's get through this together. Thank you.